Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So it seems as if the whistleblowers just don't seem to stop coming when it comes to the liberal candidate Lee Jae-myung for president, and now especially regarding his wife. His wife, of course, has been in hot trouble before, but now she's become like a hot topic. And yes, he's had so many scandals that are still under investigation that involve economically hundreds of millions of dollars. People's lives, yes, maybe now in the tens. But that doesn't seem to get the Korean public as riled up as some steaks, strawberries, and hormone pills. So there is this new Instagram account in the United States, specifically on Capitol Hill in DC, called Dear White Staffers, and it's essentially like this anonymous tip account where disgruntled DC Capitol staff employees, like for your congressman, or I guess you could say mine as well, because I'm still American. They are so fed up with the low pay, low diversity, the gaslighting, the abusive, toxic work environment that they've made like an Instagram account, and they just spill the tea on what it's really like to work for which particular congressperson's or senator's office. Well, right now here in Korea, we have a similar situation, not necessarily an Instagram account, but a situation where a former staffer of Lee Jae-myung just had enough and saved so many receipts, basically text messages that were on Telegram. And that should tell you something right there. Telegram is shady because basically if you're messaging on Telegram, essentially you're trying to either evade a totalitarian state, which they're not, or you are the totalitarian state trying to not get in trouble, which it looks like they were. And so this staffer had recorded all of these messages and also even phone call recordings and ratted out her boss. Now her boss, we're assuming she's a woman. I'll get to that because of these hormone pills. So we're assuming that this disgruntled staffer is a woman, but we don't know if it's a man or a woman. They're just calling this person A. But we do have the name of her direct boss, Ms. Bae. Like Bae, but that's her last name, B-A-E. And she has been essentially like the chief of staff for Lee Jae-myung for over a decade. Some people say that even when he was a lawyer, that's when she first started working for him. And essentially she has become like this uber personal assistant, however, that has been, rising up the ranks, sort of like a chief of staff, like very trusted, but takes care of their personal lives. And not only the principal or Lee Jae-myung's life, even though, because she is being paid for by the government under his staff, she's been used like the personal assistant or chief of staff for his wife. And this is now where the Korean public can find that point of connection. And not only is this chief of staff basically being used as a personal butler on taxpayer money, but that chief of staff doesn't really want to do all the work, so she got another public city employee and pulled her in and made her pick up the dry cleaning, make sure that the refrigerator was restocked with the strawberries and made sure each one didn't have any kind of blemish on them. So now the Korean public can understand, whoa, this is wrong. This is an abuse of power. I guess it takes strawberries and not people going missing. I guess it takes strawberries and not complicated kind of shell company schemes. It was strawberries, steaks, hormone pills. We'll get into that. And so this is riling up people. I think either people are just like, again, like, is this the straw that breaks the camel's back, or is this actually the thing that people can actually resonate with? Because this has like a lot of the hallmarks of what I have seen in Korea, where finally people get mad. It's usually over like steaks. So let's get into the steak part. Oi. So again, the wife should not have any access to the staff because she is not an elected official and she is not supposed to be using the taxpayer services. And imagine these people, especially the girl that was like fed up. She most likely had to go through some very rigorous testing process to become a public servant. And then she thought that she was going to be like going to work for the government, not going to be like another Andrea from Devil Wears Prada. And so this is very demoralizing to the public service corps. Anyhow, so there was a scheme that they had that involved steaks. Well, I'm just calling it steaks, but it's essentially like very high-end, expensive meat, red meat, cow products. And so what they would do is that they would send this girl, and around, a little bit before dinner time, like maybe 4 or 5 p.m. to their favorite butcher. And the butcher had a restaurant attached to it. That becomes important in the financial scheme. So the assistant, or basically they were saying that she was like a level 7 government employee. Level 1 is the highest. And Miss Bae, the chief of staff, is level 5, lording over Miss level 7. So she would go to the butcher, and there was a limit on like the corporate card of about $120. So each time she would go, she would buy about $120 worth of meat. Now you might think that that's like way too much meat, but in Korea we've had inflation for a long time, sweetie. So 120 actually, doesn't come out to that much. Basically, like a family of 4 could easily eat that at home. And so, but that's the thing, like the way that they were living, they're kind of living as if they're like conglomerate owners, like having like that as just kind of like a daily meal. And so she would go buy it on her own card and then deliver it. And then the next day she would go back and get a refund on her own card and use the company or corporate, or basically the city card, and charge it during lunchtime, because you're allowed to, apparently, I guess he was the mayor at the time, so I guess the mayor or governor, like, you're allowed to have meals at lunch up to $120, but not, for random purchases at the butcher, or even probably like that random time for dinner. And so what they would do was they would message, and they would even have a term that is basically kind of like what con people use for like, this kind of like card scam. And so then the personal assistant would get reimbursed, and then they would charge the taxpayer, and they were able to do that because next to the butcher side, there was the restaurant side, so then they would run it through the restaurant. So obviously the restaurant and the butcher, were in on this game, and they're probably like, oh, well, like, let's suck up to the mayor, maybe he'll do something for us. And so she said like that was just one of many crazy things that she had to do, and that really kind of crossed the line. Strawberries. She had to always pack up strawberries, and then the Miss Bae was so mean on like these messages. You could totally tell that this girl is just going above and beyond, being very conscientious. She said like, I repackaged it to like 6 containers, like you said, and like, like real, and I've been a Hollywood assistant too, so like, I know some of these like kind of crazy demands. And so like she repackaged them, and then of course, no thanks. They're just like, well, what about the blueberries? And she said, well, I didn't do the blueberries because it looked like she wasn't eating the blueberries. So this is like totally like full service, like Devil Wears Prada service for the mayor's wife. And the mayor's wife is not entitled to any of this staff treatment. Even the mayor is not entitled to this kind of staff treatment on the taxpayers' dollars. If you want to run your own company and hire your own little Devil Wears Prada assistants, then that is totally up to you with your own money. But this is the taxpayers' money, and the Korean public, this is something that pisses them off. And especially because, because we've had inflation, eating red meat is a special occasion. And I guess if prices keep going up in the United States, you'll kind of feel that too. Strawberries. You might think strawberries are nothing. Strawberries are also a special occasion. So, or if it's not a totally special occasion, it was an expensive, little bit of a fruit. And so when the Korean public hears this, they know that like, oh gosh, like they know exactly like how this kind of like probably like hits them in the gut. Blueberries also extremely expensive. I mean, the other day, like when I was in the market, and this was like not a fancy grocery store at all, the guy was standing next to the strawberries. I mean, if you have a staff member that you can afford to hire just to stand next to the strawberries and speak out, yell out like, buy these strawberries because they're on sale, they're making a good margin. And so these were like maybe like a 2-packs or something, and he says they were on sale for like over $20 or something like that. Like that was on sale. And so I was just like, still. Anyhow, so she was probably not getting those. She was probably getting like $40 strawberries. And so like they had to restock that. Now, where these hormone pills come in? And so this is also something that people are getting really upset about. Again, I'm just like, you're getting upset about hormone pills and not about like this land scandal. Okay, so the hormone pills, they were something that the wife, I guess, regularly takes, and they're not illegal. And I don't think it's something embarrassing to take, but it was probably a matter of convenience. So this is the question. Did the wife order one of the assistants to go get a prescription that she didn't need just so that, the wife didn't have to go to the doctor and get a prescription and, use her time in that manner? And that is illegal to send somebody else for your own prescriptions. And so they have admitted that the prescription was made, and that was this kind of like now they're fudging. They're trying to decide what story to take. And this is what is like raising a lot of red flags with people. Is this like, interesting, you know how like the cover up is worse than the crime? Now we're looking at a situation here where like the entire Democratic Party might be going along with a group lie just to cover up these stupid hormone pills. But what happened was that, she was supposed to get the hormone pills from her own doctor, and they said that these hormone pills, you don't prescribe them to somebody that young. You have to, because they have such side effects that you have to be of a certain age to qualify for them. You have to take a test for them. And so this was crazy that they made this girl like sign up for these hormone pills. It would be crazier if it was a guy. And so that's why I think it's a girl. So that they got these hormone pills. But then Miss Bay was saying like, oh no, these were my hormone pills, but I'm leaving them in the like on the doorstep of the mayor's wife, along with her steaks and her strawberries and her blueberries and her dry cleaning and whatever else she needed that day. And so people are just like, okay, that is suspicious, because what they are doing, the couple, Lee Jae-myung and his wife, and also it seems as if they're having the support of their party, is that they're saying like, oh, well, no. The wife had nothing to do with this. I have been the chief of staff for so long that I'm doing all these things out of the goodness of my heart as a friend. She's leaving the blueberries as a friend. She's leaving the steaks as a friend. She's leaving the dry cleaning and the hormone pills as a friend. Or I think she said like, oh, that was a mistake. If you indeed were doing it as a friend, then why are you using taxpayer money? If you were truly a friend, you would be using your own money. If you were a friend, you wouldn't be asking your underling to charge it on her card first and then have her go back to the same store, refund it, and then use the business card to charge it to the taxpayers the next day. If you were really her friend doing all of these things. So what is worrying people more than honestly, I think they're actually more jealous about the steak, strawberries, and even hormone pills. But what the statement on the surface is that they are very concerned. This makes it very concrete that these people are willing to do anything to lie and maintain some sort of persona by constantly blaming it on a fall guy, and in this case, a fall woman. Blame it all on her, let her suffer the consequences, and then keep the train moving. And people are just like, look, if they go into the Blue House and do this, think of the scales. I mean, blueberries are going to turn into strawberry fields, steaks, and they might be delivering whole cows. There is going to be absolutely no limit to the kind of greed. And Korean people know this very recently from the whole Chaesun gate. That is what they respond to. They have a lot of the times. There is a really generous leeway that the Korean public gives to its leaders in terms of corruption. If they kind of think overall, if it does something good for the economy or the country or whatever justification that they have, there is a big, generous amount of space that they give to their leaders. But the minute that you mention that some of their friends are abusing the same privileges and powers and then getting something concrete. So in Chaesun-sil's case, it was all kind of like this, and it wasn't even Chaesun-sil's case. It was more about President Park was under political fire and she was kind of dodging the bullets. But what got her was when the friend popped up, basically it seemed she's writing the speeches, but that's not when it got bullseye. Bullseye happened when it was just what? The friend got her daughter into a fancy college that most people can't get into, and she didn't have the grade. She didn't even go to class. Oh, it turned out the mom bullied the school, the high school, and said look, I'm best friends with Miss Park, who's gonna become president. If you don't listen to pass my kid, give her A's, give her a recommendation, get her into basically the Wellesley of Korea. And it turns out that daughter came back, and the daughter's a little bit weird because in those types of families, they're always at war with each other. So she was not on the same team as her mom, surprisingly. And she's just look, I didn't even want to go to college, and then my mama made me. So obviously something probably just snapped with this assistant where she's just look, I'm reporting all of this. And obviously she was probably upset all along if she's documenting all of these messages, saving these telegrams, because aren't they supposed to disappear? And so she must have been so mad, and then now she's gone out publicly and said look, this, and apparently next week there might be even more bombshells. And so this has been riling up the Korean public, because this is kind of when they do the whole now coverage of the presidential candidates and the scandals, this story is actually in the number, the leading position, when they top the show off first. And it's very interesting. I don't think it's just because it's the latest headline to come out. It's more of the thing that immediately people can connect with.
그러면 초밥, 안심 소고기, 그럼 이것도 배 씨가 자기 먹으려고 시켰다는 대리 주문시킨 거예요? 이 부분에 대해서는 해명했어요 혹시?
Because I think like when you get into things like Shell Company land scandal, like it's hard for people to kind of feel it on a gut level, even though they might think that it is something is just very wrong, because they don't know exactly like what it kind of feels and tastes like. Then if you give the counter argument in a real slick way, they can be like, oh, well, maybe, maybe there's still some questions. Maybe we should have some investigations, but nobody's got to investigate steak, strawberries, and hormone pills. Like, people know what those are and know what that looks and feels like. And then, right, like even Chesun-sil, she got like a building in Gangnam, then people are just like, no, because that is like one, you basically want to send your kid off to a nice college. You want to have a building in Gangnam so that you just collect rent and you never work again. And she was shaking down corporations for millions of dollars. I mean, that was a bigger scale, like, funneling it through a sports foundation. But I think even that, people are just like, oh, I've never made a foundation. I've never gone to like, the big conglomerates and like tried to like shake them down for money. But they understand like, you can get in there and be somewhat of this Rasputin-like figure and abuse your power when you're not even elected. And so they were also saying, like, on the other side, that this is so egregious because in those recording files of Yoon Suk-yeol's wife, she said that, like, I'm not standing for this anymore. Once we get into power, we're gonna go get them. We're gonna get them. And then people are just like, who you gonna get, girl? Like what authority? Who's gonna give you the right to get anybody? Not only is that an abuse of power, that is not even your power because we did not elect you. Your name is not on the ballot. And so people are just like, who do these princesses, empresses think they are? Like they're trying to graduate into empress. And I'm sorry, like, there was a reason why the Korean Empire, the last dynasty, ended over 100 years ago, but it still seems like people still can't shake it off. They still want to be the emperor and the empress. And so in this case, we've seen this flexing of using government staff. And this woman, Lee Jae-myung's wife, is always about like, oh, I come from such a poor background just like my husband, and we're so humble. And like Lee Jae-myung's always like writing books about like, oh, my trash collector father. But then people are like, wait a minute, I thought your father was something like, the job keeps changing of the father, so like he can't even keep his story straight unless his dad really did have a lot of jobs. But regardless, even if he did, they're painting this image of like, oh, we're so like, we're like for the poor, where there have been reports where if this wife, when she goes to the hospital, even there was some emergency, like in the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. or something, like she said that she fell in the bathroom and hit something, like maybe on something porcelain, but people were just like, no, it looked like it probably was like, one of these things at home. And apparently like she wasn't, it was an emergency situation, so they were trying to treat her, but then she was upset that she didn't get VIP treatment. VIP, like, where is my VIP? And actually, in Korean hospitals, like there is like a very strong VIP system, like, there is like a lot of that, but still, like, who is she to expect all of that when she's basically supposed to just be like the wife of a public official who doesn't really make that much money and yet has all this money floating around somewhere behind from all of these other things that, we've already talked about, just even one, with the whole football team, with him extracting money out of that. And so it has been nothing but kind of like a succession of bad news for Lee Jae-myung. So his poll numbers have decreased a bit, and so we're still seeing like what the effects would be. But next week there was supposed to be a debate on Tuesday, and it looked like Yoon Suk-yeol was going to drop out because they were trying to discuss like, you know, a three-way debate, but then now apparently that's kind of been scrapped or like postponed because they can't decide upon all of the rules, which is fine because that'll give us time to kind of digest the first debate, which was real saucy and juicy. All right, guys, so I just wanted to give you that update because if you're just, you know, wondering like what is up with like they're talking about stakes now in Korea with the presidential election and the wife just going crazy with like spending money that's not hers, well, that is essentially the gist of it. Leave your comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. See you again next time.